All right, welcome to another episode of the Endurance Matters podcast. I am honored today to have my buddy in the studio, Matt Botrill. Matt, welcome to the show.
Oh, Justin, it's a pleasure. It's been a long time catching up. It's been great to follow your journey from, like the days of coaching you to seeing how you progressed. And it's amazing, you've grown, mate. It's pretty awesome.
Yeah, well, I appreciate that. For those that don't know Matt, Matt is a cycling coach, triathlon coach, bike fitting specialist, aerodynamic guru, all in all, good dude with a ton of knowledge. So I'm really excited to get in today into your mind and understand, all the knowledge that you have. So I start off the podcast with an icebreaker, hard-hitting question here. What is harder, working a full day as a postman or doing a 5-hour ride with one of your professional athletes that you coach?
I think it's definitely riding with professional athletes. But I do miss the days at the post office. But yeah, especially if you go out with somebody like Matt Hansen, like when that dude's on the front half wheeling you, then there's only one thing you can do is come back and sleep after it. So especially when we come out to Boulder, obviously training at altitude, then that really takes it out of you. So we've been out here for nearly 2 weeks now, and each day you just collapse into bed.
Yeah, are you feeling the altitude? Just doing some training here?
Yeah, it generally takes me about after the 6th day, then it starts to kick in. Really, I generally find once you get above 8,000 feet, that's when you really feel it. So I'm in preparation for Leadville. I'm back out here in July. It's always been a dream of mine to do Leadville 100. So I'm going to be doing that. So I'm just out here getting plenty of miles in, getting some prep, catching up with people that I've not seen for quite a while. So I love it. I love it out here. Boulder is like home from home now. There's so many good people that and I'll hopefully carry on, keep coming out, each year.
Yeah, you've been coming out here for probably 4 or 5 years now, maybe more.
Yeah, the first time I came out, it was 2016. I was actually coaching Tim Don, and it was we were in prep for Kona. He'd obviously broken Ironman world record. Was that 2017? It just started from there really, and I just fell in love with the place. I just couldn't believe, the professionalism of it, and at the time, there was Erin's gym. I just loved the atmosphere in there. It wasn't anything high tech, but you could just sense this. Great people. You could be doing a run on a treadmill, and there was this old boy that had been to the Olympics. So that was it for me. And then you start riding in the mountains, and that's what I love. I love being in the mountains, away from everything. And and I've come back ever since. Any time that I haven't been here when COVID was on. So and that will continue.
Yeah, epic place for training. Well, I want to rewind a little bit. Why don't you start off by telling me how you got into cycling? Tell me a little bit about your upbringing, and maybe just start there.
Yeah, so for me, it's I've been cycling from the age of 12. I was basically hyperactive at school. I had way too much energy. I wasn't the most academic, and I started to get into a lot of trouble hanging around with the wrong people. And my granddad just said to me, "Look, you've got to change the way that you're doing things. I'm going to take you to the cycle touring club." And I just went out on my bike and I did 50 miles straight off, and I could keep up. And I thought, blimey, I love this. I've got freedom. And it just started from there. And I'd say I got pretty good pretty quick. And within 2 years, I'd go out with all these old guys, and I started doing their heads in because I was, always off wheeling. And said, "Look, you need to go and race now." So, like most people in the UK, I entered a 10-mile time trial. That's the big thing in the UK. Sure. And I did 24 minutes. And for most people, trying to get below 30 is pretty good. I was
sure.
Didn't mean anything. And then it just progressed from there. Then I wanted to be, national champion, and everything just evolved really. So it's been a good journey. I'm 48 now. So I've been in the sport a long time. I've managed to meet a lot of great people, and I've had, a lot of success from myself, but then I've been able to help a lot of other people on their journey, and that's what I love. Just helping and supporting people.
Sure. Was the goal right away to be a professional cyclist? Were you planning to take it really seriously, or what was the vision when you first got into it?
Initially, I didn't really know what I wanted to do, but I once I got into it, I wanted to be the best at it, because if like I was an academic at school, so I just thought, right, I can be really good at this. And then, like most people, I wanted to represent my country, which I managed to do as a junior. I went to the World Championships, and then in the UK, lottery funding started to kick in. So, and I wanted to be part of that. And I managed to get, I was one of the first people to get lottery funding. I was part of the performance program with people like Bradley Wiggins,
Sure.
Charlie Wigalius, that people might know. But I kind of realised pretty soon that I was going to be a good domestic professional, but I was never going to make it to World Tour. And I actually missed being at home quite a bit, because that's the thing, like back in the day, like you wouldn't go and live in the UK, you had to go abroad. You go and live in France or Belgium, and then you commute to like the races. And I just missed home too much. And I realised I was going to be a domestique, I wasn't going to be a winner. And I wanted to be a winner. And I realised that if I came back to the UK, that's where I'd succeed. And I basically just stayed there and managed to win the national championships in the UK, realistically.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's been a good journey.
And when you had that realization, was that when you realized that, okay, I'm maybe not going to be a professional cyclist where this is going to be my livelihood, I have to find a real job? Is that where the postman profession came in?
Well, initially I left school and I was a plumber. And then I realised, I did my apprenticeship, which was 4 years long, and I realised that this lottery funding was going to kick in. So in order to do that, I left being a plumber. I was on actually good money at that time. And I just did a part-time job being a postman, and I did that for 6 months. And then obviously, as a part-time athlete, I could train, and then my performances just started to come, which then allowed me to ride the bike full-time. For 2 years, I took 2 years out of work, and the post office basically left my job open. And I basically went back to the post office when I realised I wasn't going to make it, because he gave me the lifestyle. Like my hours used to be like 4:30 in the morning till like midday. And so you just imagine I've got then all the afternoon to train. And it allowed me that freedom, really.
What was that realization like when you found out or said to yourself, I'm not going to make it as a professional athlete, and I do have to go get this real job to make the dream sort of sustainable here? Was that a bummer, or did you sort of embrace that?
No, I just embraced it. I was ready for it. Do you know what I mean? I could just see that I wasn't going to be. I was going to be good. I realized like I could do like. In the peak of my career, I could still do like 400 watts for an hour, which is pretty good. But at world tour level, it's not good enough. But it did mean that I could win a lot of races back home, which that was the journey set. But I really like. I look at it now. Yes, I did have a lot of failings to get the success. It took me a long time to get to the top of the sport in the UK. But I think my journey was to be where I am today. From 2014, it was to coach people and support them on their journeys, because I made so many mistakes to get to where I wanted to be, and it was only meeting the right people, like getting the right coach, the right person for aerodynamics, that allowed me to succeed. And then I had all this information, and I wanted to be able to pass it on to other people, really.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, very interesting. I definitely want to get into sort of that avenue of you getting into bike fitting and getting into coaching. First, I want to figure out, the time trial seems to be something that you personally had a lot of success in.
Yeah.
And why do you think that you gravitated a lot towards the time trial, and why do you feel like that's maybe an area of speciality for you?
It was just obviously I had a big engine, so that helps. And it was just the control of being able to supply like a lot of power for a relatively big duration, really. And for me, eventually, I loved all the tech side to it. Like all this technology, understanding it all, because a lot of the stuff that people are seeing today, we innovated that. Like the camelback down the chest, we did that back in 2012. The aero pads that you're seeing. Like all these fancy poles, we were like the innovators,
Sure.
Myself and like Simon Smart from Drag 2.0. And I just wanted to be the best. You just got, when you've got control of everything, it's incredible. You're just riding along at like 30, 35 miles an hour all the time. And that speed, that's what I was addicted to, the speed.
Yeah.
And the clock, like it's so controllable. It's like like an Ironman, realistically. you're racing against time, aren't you? You know, like, yes, you get a place in, but ultimately there's this time that you're trying to beat, and that's what I was addicted to. I wanted to get faster and faster and faster. And having all this tech that we were able to access, that's what I was addicted to.
Sure. Were you focusing a little bit more, I guess when you first got into it, I want to talk a little bit about the bike fitting versus the coaching. Were you getting into bike fitting before you were getting into coaching, or were those two things sort of symbiotic?
It was kind of, my journey was, it was more about, I didn't really know what I wanted to do. I reached the pinnacle of the sport in the UK. And I kind of realised that I needed to make more money. Like back in the day, a postman I was on £20,000. So I had 3 children. It's not going to supply or support them. So I thought, right, maybe coaching's an avenue that I could take. And all that happened to me one day, I used to write these articles for Giant. I've always been sponsored by Giant for like 15 years now. And there was a guy called Timo Brack who he was an Ironman athlete.
Sure, I know Timo.
Yeah, and he reached out to me just going, look, I've read your articles. Would you consider coaching me? I was like, I'm not sure I'm ready to be a coach yet, but send me your training over. I'll have a look at it. And I just thought, like this guy, he doesn't do intervals. He just does like high volume. And then he said he wanted to win this Ironman Roth. I didn't really know what Roth was. And I just thought, right, okay, let's look at the demands of Roth. Let's look at like your bike positioning. I just thought, well, if you go through this process of training and, adapting to the position on like the bike, then ultimately you can save energy and you're going to go a lot faster. And ultimately what was happening to Tio, he was always blowing up in the last 10K of the run. So ultimately the goal was to save energy on the bike, and that's what I was able to do with him. And I just trained him for the demands of the event. I'll be honest, I didn't even really know what I was doing with the training. I just kind of winged it, but it seemed to work. And I just thought, wow, there must be something in this. Then I started coaching a few friends. They started winning races, and I thought, wow, I'm onto a formula here. So it was kind of like I engaged the two really. And initially, I understood aerodynamics, but I didn't understand like biomechanics, or I didn't understand the fitted, like the adaptation that you were getting from the training. I kind of, and I'm not sure I understand that now. Like a lot of my, the sensations and the feelings that I get is just being out in the field, working with a lot of different people, and you're just trying to create like this formula.
Sure.
I think there's some amazing coaches out there, amazing aerodynamicists that understand like all that information. Where I'm just visual. I learn visually, and I just listen to people, and it seems to work.
Yeah, sure. That's definitely fair, and that's actually refreshing to hear in an environment and in a world where everyone is so calculated and so by the textbook. I think that there's like coaching is an art. That's an art form, and I think that there's value in just someone who's actually taking the time to listen and review and hear what athletes have to say. Sponsor of today's episode, Precision Fuel and Hydration. These guys have been an amazing partner for the show, and it's really a product that I use every single day in my training to help me go faster, feel better. So in today's day and age, we all know high carb is sort of the thing. And so previously I've spoken about how much I like the chews, and I'm still munching on those pretty much every single day in training, but I've really been getting into the PF90 gels. That's been a really big value add for me to have 3 gels in one. And I feel like sometimes I'll just take that entire gel all at once or go half and half. It just allows me to get a little bit more carbohydrate and sort of just bump everything up and feel a little bit better in training. So if you want to try that for yourself, head on over to pfnh.com and use code BigMetz2025 for 15% off. I'm curious to hear about when you were reaching the top of the sport in the UK, and when you won your national title there, were you also working at the time, or was that in that little gap?
Yeah, absolutely. I've always worked. Yeah. It was kind of, like I won a lot of my races on 8 to 10 hours, but it was evil training. And, I was at the stage that, like, one of my biggest successes was I was second in the British Time Trial Championships, which is, like where you race for like the national championships jersey.
It's a big deal, yeah.
Yeah, it's massive. And I was second to Alex Dowsett, only 15 seconds behind him. And I beat a lot of the World Tour athletes, and that's what, like they were riding for like Sky. These guys are getting paid hundreds, if not millions of pounds, or, and I'm this postman. That's where the flying postman came from, So, but I did it on relatively short hours, and I had to, I had 3 kids at the time. But the reason that success came was the fact that I got the right coach, and like aerodynamics started to kick in. Like
Sure.
wind tunnel testing. Like in the UK, we're kind of the innovators. Like people see it. Like we're in the window now that everybody's getting more aero, and that's why the times are coming down. But yeah, it was just getting the right coach and meeting Simon Smart from Drag to Zero that enabled me to achieve what I did. And I was kind of 36 and my power was dropping off. I won every race that year, like, I don't know, like 30 races or something. And the only race that I didn't win, I was fourth in the British Time Trial Championships that year. And the people that beat me were Bradley Wiggins, Geraint Thomas and Alex Dowsett. I remember I was so angry at myself that I hadn't won, but now looking back, it's probably the best time trial one of the best time trials that I ever did.
Yeah, those are three of the best time trialists almost to ever do it. You know what I mean? Like, arguably, they're in the top 10 of all-time time trialists,
Yeah, absolutely. So,
it's impressive.
It's been a great journey.
Yeah. What were you doing, if you could look back and think of maybe one or two things, either from an aerodynamics perspective or from a training perspective, that were really low-hanging fruit, that you got a lot of, like, you maximized your time? Because if you're only doing 8 to 10 hours a week, like, what were the big sessions?
Totally. It's like a swear word to most people now. Like, I was doing a lot of sweet spot training, like working at 90% of efficiency, because I'm limited on time. I want to hit a certain amount of training stress through the week. So that was like, it was the volume of like a lot of my training. Then so that was the basis of it. And then what I would do like 6 weeks out before like a national championship, then I would start to build like the intervals and progress. And I think that's how training works for a lot of people now. Like, where it goes wrong for most people, they just keep cramming hours and hours. They don't really peak. They're not, they're not building. They're just kind of maintaining. But the art for me was learning to ride and pace the bike efficiently. Like looking at aero, and it was pretty simple initially. Like I remember, there's two factors that will work for like most people. Learn to drop your head into place. So we call that like this turtle position, and that always works for triathletes. And then for a lot of cyclists, then we've got like what we call the shrug, where you're trying to roll your shoulders into your ears. But that's quite hard for triathletes to sustain. Like you've got swimming, you're learning to run. There's a lot of parts. There's more pieces of the puzzle that you're trying to put together. But I always say to people, like, the biggest low-hanging fruit you can have without spending any money at all is training in front of a mirror. Yeah. Like understanding what your body can do. Like just stick your poles. If you've gone and brought your bike from the bike shop, doesn't matter if it's a £1,000 bike or a £15,000 bike. Like generally the cockpits that come with those bikes are not that great. But if you start to mess around with like your pole angle, you'll see like how it rotates your shoulder into place. But it is that learning to drop that head into position it's a win-win. Because all you're trying to do with like aero, you're trying to interact like your head into your shoulders, and then it will enable it to, like the air to attach to like your suit ultimately.
Sure. So all these things are adding up to add to what you begin to have as your coaching philosophy. So how much of the workouts that you have in your library, the workouts that you prescribe to professional athletes and amateur athletes, are things that you just sort of think of, versus I saw someone do this, I tried it, I heard someone do this, or I read an athlete's training plan, they were doing this, it worked for them? How did you come up with the workouts in your library for now?
Yeah, I just started looking at individuals and just understanding like what they couldn't and couldn't do, and then the limitations, and that's what I'm still doing today. Mm-hmm. Like ultimately, my philosophy is you're trying to optimize speed, power, and aerodynamics, and it's trying to engage like those elements realistically. And each athlete can do something differently, like initially is most people, they start on the journey of riding a time trial bike, and it's just trying to get them into the drops, isn't it? Like you go out and the bike's blowing you all over the place. So then you start off with, like simple exercises. Like I do a lot of like 20-40 drills or 30-30 drills, where all you're trying to do is get into the bars and hold it for 30 seconds or 20 seconds, then come out. And then once you get that and you get confidence in the bike, then that's when you can really progress it. Like, and you just progress. So the same way you progress intervals, you progress aero drills. Yeah. And then it engages. And once you get to a certain point, then that comes natural. I remember starting with you,
Yeah.
like your journey. I always remember like you know, like sitting up bolt upright. Then it takes like probably a year to get it. Then you kind of just keep fine tuning it from like that point realistically. And it's like, I look at you on the bike now and it comes natural, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Like you've got a great position on the bike. You've got and like nowadays, as you know, like you're riding like the new Drag 2 0.66s, it takes all the weight, you drop into it, and it's a lot easier, isn't it?
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? I love seeing people like yourself. Like when you, I remember meeting you for the first time, and then I see where you're at now, and you've been on like this journey, and you can keep evolving, and you'll keep evolving, and it'll keep progressing really. Like in your eyes, you're really old now, but ultimately you're still very young,
Yeah.
So
I remember I went and came and for those that don't know, I came and visited Matt in the UK. We did some wind tunnel testing in 2020.
Yeah.
And I remember I had gotten this new bike and we had just started working together. And I remember you like pulled out a ruler or something to measure my shoulder width in my in my TT position. And you were like, oh my gosh, this is way too wide. We got to work on that. I remember being so frustrated the first year because on paper you look, okay, my training plan says 10 by 20 seconds on, 40 seconds off in the TT position, but it was hard for me to do that.
Yeah.
And yeah, you just got to stick with it. You got to stick with it. And Matt's got some amazing videos like on his Instagram and YouTube that sort of like explain these aero drills. And I think that they're definitely like a hidden secret. All triathletes just want to make it harder. They just want to push more watts, but this is an easy way to get some free speed.
And that's what everybody needs to start looking like. Nobody can buy like a stock bike and just, you've got to progress it. Do you know what I mean? And work at it, and then it'll come. But yeah, it's definitely, I'd say that, like to get 10 to 20 watts in aero for most people, for a lot of triathletes, if you're starting on this journey, you're going to find like 40 to 50 watts.
Totally.
And I remember coming to the sport, working with people like Tim Don, who, they weren't quite at the top of the sport, but they just needed a bit of a nudge to get them there. And, like we were shaving, like, I've done it so many times now, you're shaving like initially we were shaving like 15 to 20 minutes off professional Ironman times. Like now it's evolved quite a bit more. It's a lot harder to do that. But for amateurs, you can shave that time. Like get out there, start understanding it. If you've not had a professional bike fit, we're in Boulder. You've got people like Ivan Gorman. They understand like all this stuff. Like Matt Steinemich. You've got some great. Go and get a professional bike fit because you will progress. And then they start to make you understand like the position, and you can evolve it. Like you don't just have like one bike fit and away you go. You've probably got to. Initially, if you're, like you're in a bad state, you might need to go back in 6 months. But definitely each year you can evolve it. You don't need to just go straight into the wind tunnel, like get a bike fit first.
Sure. If you're taking on a new athlete, whether they're an amateur or professional athlete, are you focusing first away at, okay, let's improve aerodynamics, or are you worried about, okay, let's spend 12 weeks changing the training?
Yeah, that's well, my role's changed quite a bit now. I've just built a team of coaches, but I'm kind of stepping out of the form of like coaching. But if I was, I generally look at like the training initially, and then I say, okay, well, this is where your physiology is. This is where your power profile is. This is how we can change that. But in order to do that, we've probably got to align like bringing in, like specific drills into like your training. And because if you align those two factors, you'll get the best out of the athlete. Like it's because like power and aerodynamics, you've got to align them too. But yeah, that's how I always work.
Sure. I want to dive a little bit more into aerodynamics specifically and all of the time and knowledge that you've gained in the wind tunnel. So I would say the first question is, what is the main thing that you value in the wind tunnel experience?
I think a lot of people are making a lot of mistakes going to like the wind tunnel. Like I see it now. These are world-class athletes that they're just chasing like the aero, and they're not understanding like your angles and speed. Like the problem you've got if you do go to the wind tunnel, a lot of the time people will run it too fast. They'll go, oh, I'm going to run like 50 kilometers an hour, and they just because it's quite costly. That every time like we always do like yaw sweeps. So initially you'll do like a yaw sweep, and then you'll run it at a set speed. For professional triathletes, like 45 kilometers an hour, 42, depending on if it's female, male. But then we'll do like a yaw sweep, so we start to understand like the position. And then what you want to be able to go from that is you'll probably go, right, the average is like 2.5 degrees of yaw. And then you'll start to progress the positioning from that point. But if something looks, like it flares out, it's like, fucking, I'll just save 20 watts there. That's when you need to kick like yaw sweeping. And then, so initially we do like something like that. But what I always like to do with a lot of athletes is go higher, go lower, and understand like what those factors bring in. Because ultimately, especially for triathletes, it's not as important for cyclists. You're always going to chase the biggest aero portion. That you want to understand it. It's probably that middle point that's quite important to get. And then from that point, what we do then is utilize position in different ways. No one can sustain like this super aero position for the full duration of the event. I always work on a 3-position rule. You've got head up. That's like for climbing, or just get me to the finish. We have this medium position where you're not forcing it, but you should be able to drop your head into place. And realistically, 70 to 80% of that race, you should be able to sustain that. Then we have ultra aero. So when the speeds are really high, and this is what confuses a lot of people, that you want to be able to conserve energy. Most people think that aerodynamics, we're going to utilize that more into the headwind, but it's when you're going downhill and the tailwinds that you really want to save energy, because then you're not having to produce like power. Because it's very hard to engage like aero and power together. And that's the mistake that a lot of people are making. You're just trying to hold like this aggressive position into the headwind. And ultimately you get into the tailwind, and then a lot of the time you run out of gears, or you've blown at that point. But that's what I'm always trying to look at, like the wind tunnel, just understand windows, and then you can evolve it from there realistically.
Yeah, that's probably one of the, I have a lot of takeaways that I still think about from our time working together, but that's probably the biggest one that I continue to remind myself out on the road, and one that I relay onto my athletes. I was just talking to an athlete who raced Ironman Texas, and I was saying, hey, it's going to be headwind one way, it's going to be tailwind the other way. And his initial inclination would be, I want to slam my arrow into the headwind and then into the tailwind, do the opposite. But it's actually counterintuitive thinking in that. So very interesting there. I've been to the wind tunnel twice. We went to the wind tunnel together at the Boardman Tunnel, and then I went again in 2022 with Quintana Roo.
Yeah.
Both times I felt as though it's a lot of time, it's a lot of energy, it's a lot of money. And I think on paper, the athletes are really motivated to find a gain. And I think the people working around the athlete are also motivated to find a gain. And it can be frustrating when you go in there and you're either making stagnant progress or making negative progress. I think everyone's goal is to just, okay, let's find 20 watts, however that happens. What's the best way to approach a wind tunnel session? Because that's kind of, from my 2 experiences there, and I've also done some on-road aero testing, it's almost as if you achieve the 20 watts, however it might happen, and then the changes that you make are actually not sustainable. Yeah. And then you get to the race and you just revert to baseline, and the whole trip was worthless. Yeah,
absolutely. I think that can happen. I think the art is, though, you've got, like, if you've done like a quality to the session, then it's going away and understanding like what drills and what specifics you need to bring into that. And I think that's I think nowadays, like, I don't know, it's from like when I met you with 6 years down the road, like, so much more. I'd say that it's like most people that like recently I went with Vincent Louis to the wind tunnel, and I said to mate, if we make 10 watts today, we've done well. We've done a pre-fit. Like 10 watts is a good window to have. Yeah. So, and I think that's the art. If you've had a professional bike fit initially, and then I always say, like, look, let's go and train this now for like 6 months. Like, then we can go to the wind tunnel and like refine it. But you are right. A lot of the times you just check. You get to this point because you paid all this money, you want to chase.
You need a return,
Yeah, you do. And sometimes it is hard, like you've got to say, well, look, but when we've had it with like you've got some amazing time trialists, and we can't find them anything. But what it does tell you is that you've just got to build confidence from it realistically. Sure. But I do get it. I think the art for a lot of people is that you've got to try and get that professional bike fit done first before you start to worry about like like anything else. I think the biggest thing that I have seen, it's very interesting this last 6 months, we've had a lot of new products that's come onto the market. Like there's a lot of new helmets, skin suits are starting to improve again, and I think we'll see over this next year that wheel technology and tyres are only going to improve like even more. So I think we had a few years where ultimately there wasn't much of a shift, but like there's definitely been a shift in this last 6 months, and that's we've just seen Ironman Texas. You look at the times that everybody's doing. That's a shift from Kona to like here. We'll get another shift, coming to Kona and Nice for like the end of this season.
Sure. I'm curious as well to understand a little bit about finding this middle ground between power and aerodynamics. So I think like maybe you can go into the tunnel, or maybe you can go get a professional bike fit where we say, all right, you can achieve your race pace off 300 watts, but we're going to have to slam you in a position that's going to be really uncomfortable and you might not be able to sustain it. Or we can put you in a less aggressive, less aerodynamic position and you can hold 320, but you can do it all day. What would be your choice?
It's going to be ultimately, it's probably that middle window still. You want the 310, really, don't you?
Sure.
I think initially it's probably like you chase like more of the power, and then you come like over time in this next few months, then we can start to drop you into like the position realistically. Yeah. It's unrealistic for like, because it's improving again, because one of the biggest things now is like crank length has improved as well. Like up until like the start of this year, we couldn't even let's say like on a SRAM or a Shimano crank, we couldn't even get 160s. Yeah. Where like now we can get 160s. So that means we can be more aggressive with the position. We can open up the hips more. So it's improving and evolving. But I think it's taken me from, I started this journey in 24. It's taken me until like this last year, I'd say, to understand like biomechanics and aero. I've had to see like a lot of people. I've probably done over like 4,000 bike fits now, and that took a long time for me to understand. Yeah. Yeah.
From an observation perspective, me just being a fan of the sport and noticing the trends over the years, also following the trends a little bit myself. 10 years ago, we were all going slam stems, negative degrees, tilting the bars down. Okay, then maybe 5 years later, you're still sort of at the same sort of height, low height, but maybe angling the bars up, getting really steep with the arms. Now what we're seeing is a lot of athletes coming up quite a lot and going long with the bars. Right. What do you think is, because I think maybe 10 years ago, that would have not even been something people would have considered. Why are people going that direction?
Basically, like all that's happening now is we've just got so many degrees of angles. You know what I mean? Like, I'll use like a drag to zero system for example that, like we've got like all these new fancy bars, and what we can angle these bars by 2.5 increments, and then we've got so much adaptability with length, and that's the problem that we had. Like, if we looked at like some of the bars now, they're like 40. I can only work in centimeters, but like they're like 45, 50 centimeters long, where previously we used to have like 30 centimeter bars, and then we had. Like 10 years ago, I just remember used to get 20s, 30, 40, and 50 degree angle. Yep. Where like now we've got so many, and that's what we're seeing. And like what you are seeing in that is like people are riding like smaller frames. And I was doing this, like 15 years ago, but they're getting smaller frames and then they're lifting the stacks, because then that makes a faster bike. It's a bit harder when you've got somebody like yourself that's over 6'4".
I'm on an XL bike no matter what.
Absolutely. Then it becomes a lot harder. But all you're trying to do is interacting. You're trying to close the gap between like your hands and your face a lot of the time, and interacting your helmet into your back shape. And that's the bit that we didn't know much about previously, and that's what we're seeing. Like with new technology in clothing as well, like the materials, it's attaching the air, so you can have like this super high position. We've got all the new trips on the arms, and there's so much that's changed and evolved. So, and that's why we can get, a much more aggressive. A less aggressive position for the same aero. Like if people looked at me, like you Google Matt Botrill, you'll see I've got this amazing flat back. But like nowadays I've got athletes who've got a very rounded back. They look really high on the front, but their aerodynamics is the same as what mine is.
Sure.
And a lot of it is just the angle of the pole.
Yeah, cool. I've noticed a big difference in getting on the drag to 0.66. I've been able to come up quite a bit, and it's been more comfortable and a lot faster.
I think this, and it's amazing. Like if people came to my unit, you'll see I've got every bar that's going, starting at like £40 up to, we can make custom moldy ones at like £4,000. But we've worked, like I work a lot with like people like Drag2Zero, and now we've got all these different systems. I must drive Simon mad because I'm like, oh mate, can you do this new computer mount? Can you do this new water bottle mount? And we're there now. Like I think we're at the pinnacle of, like handlebars and positioning. We are at the pinnacle of it for people that are, taking this very seriously. I don't think I'll be saying to you in another 10 years, we've got like this new handlebar that's going to save you 10 watts.
Yeah.
We might find one or two, but
Sure.
So much has evolved.
Yeah, what about bike frames? I feel like bike frames have been a little bit stagnant, and there have been companies like Ventum and Coup and all these other, companies who have tried to maybe make an obscure product that finds some gains, but it seems as though they aren't really making a massive difference. What are you seeing in bike frames right now?
It's the technology is coming from interaction of wheels and bikes. Interacting the frame and the wheels together with the tyre, and that's what you look at all brands now. You'll see specifically they're working with a wheel manufacturer or frame manufacturers are coming together, and that's where the technology will change, which is very interesting. I believe that we'll be at the point. There's so much more that can come from. There's going to be more that can come from wheels and tyre widths. We're at this very interesting point. Like all the new bikes, no one's going to be running 26s. No one's like 24s. We're going to be out to the point of like 30mm tyres. Will we get to 32s? I don't know. Rim technology has got to change.
Sure. If you're an athlete out there and you're like, I'm in the market for a new bike frame and I'm in the market for a new set of wheels, like what right now is catching your attention?
I think there is a lot of good product that's coming like onto the market, really.
And we're going to try and be unbiased. You're sponsored by Giant and Cadex. I'm sponsored by Envy. So
but I do think that those two brands are leading the way.
Sure.
Like the new Trinity is like that is the fastest bike that we have tested. I know that Giant isn't massive in like the UK, but it's. All it is now is like frame weights, like we're building new Giant Trinities at like 7 to 8 kilograms, which is incredible because that's what has happened with a lot of bikes, is that they've got more aero, but they've got like a lot heavier. I think like Ventum, like I've done some bits with like Ventum and stuff, and I think they've got a great new bike that's been launched. I think for triathletes, I still think that a lot more care and consideration still needs to be thought about, like bottle mounting and, like tools. It's just like simple factors. Like if I was designing a bike myself, like your market is triathletes. There's so many of them that start thinking about like what they actually need. That's the part that I get frustrated about is, it's trying to get things right. Like you want to have accessibility to your nutrition and your hydration. They're the key factors. And then your body position is so critical, like being able to adapt like that front end. And that's what I'd always look for in a bike. Like we're at the point now, there's probably between 1 to 4 watts in all the top of the frame set. But if that bike, you can enable that to have more adjustability, and then you haven't got to fork out for like a new front end, that's what you ultimately want. And I think brands, that's what we'll probably see in the next few years, really. And I think brands needs to get smarter. Like it kind of gets my back up a little bit because like being a bike fitter, that you buy like this new bike, you buy it off the peg, it's got the wrong size crank, the handlebars need changing, the saddle probably needs changing. But I think what we'll see, and bike shops needs to get smarter, is the fact that they need to start offering these services. Like that's what we do. Like we start with. You spec your bike. Obviously, we do Giant, Cadex, but if you've got your own frame, then we can build that configuration for you. Because everybody's got like a different budget, and everyone's got different needs, haven't they? At the end of the day, but I do think that consumers, that's what they'll want over the next. I think bike manufacturers are going to have to. They're going to have to offer that service realistically.
What is catching consumers' attention from your perspective right now? You're seeing, 4,000 bike fits over the time. You're seeing hundreds of bike fits a year. What are the customers consuming?
Short cranks, handlebars, saddles.
And what kind of frames are they bringing in?
Like in the UK, Canyon's really big. Giant's pretty big. Cervelo, obviously that's massive here in Trek. Mm-hmm. We don't see as many of them in Europe and like the UK, but they're the main bikes that I'm seeing realistically. And then, yeah, there's so many different wheels on the market now. That's what blows my mind. It's like incredible, isn't it? You know, like we've got all these new manufacturers.
Yeah, it's good to see everyone investing, at least some of the brands reinvesting in triathlon, at least from my perspective, like NB took a little bit of a departure from triathlon for a while, but now they're, reevaluating and understanding that there is a big market in triathlon, and that's cool,
It's massive. Like, seriously, I would be out of business if I didn't have triathletes in my life. I'm so happy that I discovered this sport. It's so good. Yeah. And just the people, like, understanding them, I love it.
Yeah. What are the big differences that you see between cyclists and triathletes?
I'd say cyclists are a lot more, they're probably a bit more professional in like their approach, and they keep everything to like I would have been the same. It blew my mind. I came into triathlon, and I just couldn't believe like no one would ever tell you a session, or they'd never give away data. It's like when I came into the sport, initially I coached amateurs, then I started coaching Tim Don, and it was like, well, I want to know where everybody is in the world. So who do I Google? Lionel Saunders. Every bit of information was out there. So then I was like, okay, well, I'm going to plot now where everybody is in the world. Like people like Jan Frodeno. I thought, right, this is their aero, this is their power. It was so easy to get. So that is the difference. Like a triathlete will tell you, they'll speak to you, they'll give you all the information away. Cyclists would never do that, and still would never do that.
Is that a cultural thing, or is there something going on behind the scenes in cycling that they're trying to protect?
Yeah, I think it's just calculation, isn't it? Because the margins of error are just like so small. Like especially in like a time trial, like 1 to 2 seconds. But in a triathlon, it's not as important.
Yeah.
You could lose that in transition just dropping your helmet.
Yeah. How much do you think that in professional cycling, those guys are looking at each other and understanding immediately what's going on? Because they've seen the rapid ascension of time and pace as well, right? Like they're putting up times faster than anybody.
Yeah, totally. Like it's just evolved over the last, like this last 4 years that people have like evolved it like so much. I used to work with like Lotto Sodal. I worked with Victor Campenerts when he broke like the hour record. And I remember going into Lotto. I actually met Victor out in Kona and a few beers with him, and he asked me if I'd consider like working with the team. I was like, yeah, of course, Victor. But I never thought any more of it. The next thing I know, I'm on a plane to Mallorca, bike fitting these athletes, and I didn't think that I was good enough. But I walked into this, this environment, and it just blew my mind just how bad it was. We had people in the 60s, 70s with better bike fits, but now you can see over this especially the last couple of years, like how much it's evolved. A lot of people are employing people from like the UK to go into these teams to look after all this information and look at the bike fit, look at the aero, look at the pacing plans, because the pacing plan is really important as well. So it's none of those athletes are giving away like information.
Sure. Yeah, that's interesting. And it seems as though the UK is just a hotbed. Like there's so much coming from the UK, not only incredibly talented cyclists in their own right, but like so much of the coaching and the knowledge and the aerodynamics is coming from there. All the wind tunnels are there. And for a relatively small country in comparison to the United States, for example, or Canada or Australia, like everyone's coming from the UK. Why is that?
I think we're just obsessed. Like it's the time trialing culture that, like you could literally ride against the clock every day of the week, and then there's so many races in the weekend. And what you generally finding is that a lot of these people haven't got a lot of power, so they try and chase like the aerodynamics. And we're very fortunate that, like a lot of these, the innovation has come from people that worked in Formula One. Like Drag 2.0, Simon Smart was like the innovator. Then you got people like Dan Bigham that was trying to break into Formula One. He actually worked for Drag 2.0, then set a watch shop. People like, like Aero Coach, Xavier Dishley, that was just been obsessed with like TT. And they're like the big names that have they've innovated a lot of this stuff. It's an obsessed, we're just obsessed with it, just going fast, I think that we'll always lead that way. I think it's great, and it's great to see like the USA's. It just needs to catch up a little bit, and I think that's what you're seeing. Like the Europeans, like a lot of the stuff that we had in the UK has gone to Europe. Now, like if you're in the USA, you just need to catch up like a little bit. But the products are there and you can get them. You just got believe in it. Like don't think that you can buy like your new bike. start to, speak to your bike shop or speak to one of the professionals that are in the States and evolve it.
Sure. I want to circle back before we move on. Just one more question about the wind tunnel. What is one thing that you've tested that completely shocked you and you had to go retest immediately?
I think the bottle between the arms, like it's kind of a winning formula every time. Do you know what I mean? It was. I remember testing that, and when we were sticking the bottle down the chest, that was probably the one that always generally works realistically. And dropping your head into position is always like the key one.
Sure.
You always find that head position is like critical to going quick.
Yeah, that bottle down the chest thing is very interesting because that was such a hot topic in triathletes. Like it was like a viral meme type situation.
Do you want to know how that all started? Basically, it was Tony Martin wanted to win like the world championships. So Simon Smart knew about. He was messing around with like he was developing skin suits at the time. So what they did, we got some bubble wrap, stuck that down the chest, and we was like, blimey, that gives like 4 to 5 watts, and that's where it all started. Then what happened was we did sub 7. So obviously there was Dan Bigham's team, and then I was riding for like Christian's team, and we knew about the bottle, but we were always. I was a bit. I didn't want the athletes to overheat.
Sure.
And then everybody's seen the bottle down the chest. It's Camelback that was down the chest, and then that's when it kind of ignited it. We never wanted to tell people because we knew that it would go to like the extreme of people taking it too far.
Sure.
And that's what we started to see, wasn't it? People would then start, they were sticking like 3 bottles down the chest. I think it was like Sam Laidlow created this. He was doing Ironman Lanzarote, where he created this massive fairing and ended up overeating.
Oh,
and
for sure.
He just got pushed to extreme. But you generally find that, like the bottle down the chest and the bottle on the frame, that doesn't realistically work. A lot of the time is you just need the one, and that's the bottle on the frame.
Sure.
Well, in between the arms, realistically.
Yeah. It was really interesting because there was in triathlon circles, a lot of people were thinking that the genesis of that came from Christian's like deformity in his chest, and thinking like, oh wow, he's got this big chest. We need to maybe give ourselves a big chest. And then I had done some on-road aero testing with Jim Manton in Tucson.
Yeah, I watched it. Yeah.
And we put the bottle down the chest, and for me, it was -5 watts.
Yeah.
Like I lost 5 watts of aero. It was slower for me. So that was a big eye opener because all of 2023, I was racing with a big 1 liter in my chest and losing 5 watts of aerodynamics, thinking I was gaining 5. So there's always an anomaly to the rule. You know what I mean? Like that's just the thing with aerodynamics and individuality.
There's definitely certain trends. Like I can see trends now. Like back positions. There's like all trends with this that all generally work for a lot of people.
Sure. Yeah. All right. Well, I want to move on, and I want to talk a little bit more about your exposure to super high-level professional athletes. That's something that you're well known for, whether in a direct coaching role or in a consulting role. Talk to me a little bit about what you enjoy when it comes to working with the professionals.
I think the easiest thing for me working with a professional, there's a lot more at stake, but I can relate to that a lot easier because that's where I was, and I love the pressure of the process. Like some of the stuff that I've had to do, initially, obviously the first person I ever worked with, like Tim Don, and the realization was to me that actually this dude gets paid to do this. I can't mess this up. And then I just had to visualize becoming Tim Don. I started to do triathlon myself to understand like what the demands of, it take out like the body. And then ultimately from that process and with the people that I've worked with, like when I work with them, I become them. I know that I have to think about like I'll do a lot of research into that athlete and understand like what they can and can't do and where they are. I'll get them to send me like files, look at them like aerodynamically, and then how do we progress that? The hardest part, like, because my role's changed so much over this last few years that I don't coach these athletes now. They generally have like a coach that then I'll work with. And then they kind of build a team, and that becomes like quite hard in some respects because you want them to do like aero drills, but the coach wants to do so. All I can do in that situation is advise them, and just be realistic about like their approach in terms of this is where you are today. Because the art for me is not just only making this is for a triathlete, not just making them. I want to get them more aero, but then I don't want to diminish. I don't want to diminish in return in terms of how they're running off the bike, really. And that's what, because there's a cost that can be affected with that. So, and that's how I always work.
Sure. Coaches, at least from my perspective and with my coaching, I like environments where I have a lot of control, because when you don't have all of the variables, it's very difficult to make all the progress, and you kind of need athletes to buy in all the way with your approach in order for you to get the maximum amount of return. Do you struggle with that when you're just consulting athletes, because there are so many cooks in the kitchen?
Yeah, so some people, like, I don't really struggle. Like, I give them the option, really. I can say, well, I can provide you with the specific aero drills that I want that athlete to, like, focus, and then you implement it. And some people will buy into that and others won't. I think the more science-driven that they are, they're like, oh, why do you need to do like that? They're looking at the physiological adaptation rather than trying to align them. But I think that's how I like to work now, is like build drills that people need. But it's up to the coaches to implement it.
Sure. How much of the coaches right now are focusing purely on physiology versus just like real world application? Like a lot of the stuff that we were doing, and I don't want to give away all your like trade secrets, but they were the aero drills. They were surging over the crest of the top of a hill when you're out on the road. They were working the headwind and the tailwind. Like those were all areas that we were practicing every single week. Are the coaches right now just saying LT1, LT2, hit the lactate?
I think that's where most of them are. I don't think a lot of them understand that element of it. They've never done it, or they don't understand like why they're doing it. I don't see too many people doing that, and I think that's got to be like the next phase, because this is all going to get faster. We're not at the pinnacle. We've seen some amazing results at the weekend. There's going to be more of that to come. I think that's where you'll always, like, it's like for you, Justin, you know, like, I think the great thing for you is you've worked with some of the great coaches. You've been through this process yourself, and if you can, you know, over time, I'm not trying to big you up now, but you are still young. If you can align like those elements, and you can start to lead the way like a little bit, you know. Like,
that's what I'm trying to do. I think like that's my vision over the course of the next 10 years, is to really sort of jump into the high performance coaching world. And I feel like I have a lot of experience now, and I want to continue to gather that from observation and mentorship with like coaches who are more experienced and smarter than me, but also through just personal experience. Because I think like you said, when you start coaching Tim Don and you go do a triathlon, like for me, experiencing a session is the most valuable information. Do you feel as though there are coaches out there in the elite world who are maybe sitting behind a computer or reading a textbook or publishing a study who don't experience what a session feels like, and there's a gap in the prescription and therefore a failure? Or do you think like it can be done just from a conceptual perspective?
I think for some, I believe that you have to get out there in the field or go out with the athlete to understand it. You know, like that's understand like what that adaptation's bringing. Because like, how do you? It's like, that's why I will always ride till the day that I die, and I always want to keep fit, that I can then explain to the athlete and see like what they're doing. I can see like the power and the heart rate through a training. You know, they download it into Training Peaks, but I'm not seeing like how the body moves and what they're doing with the position. Is it fast or is it slow? You know, because anyone can whack out, sit up on the bars and whack out like a big number, but have they done it in the right way? You know, like, because we are at the point like, time trial in triathlon, it's getting to the point it's as tactical as road racing. Do you know what I mean? Like, you've got to understand like the crosswinds, you've got to understand like all these elements. You always want to get one above. You want to lead the curve, not follow it. And that's what we're seeing at the minute, is a lot of people are following the curve. Well, you need to lead it, but you've got to innovate or die, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm curious to hear your perspective on, you've coached a range of athletes. You've had access to professional athletes who are just getting going, mid-packers. When we started, I was very much a mid-packer, maybe still a mid-packer, I don't know, and very high level, you know, world champions. Is it harder to take an okay pro and make them good, or a good pro and make them great?
It's probably, it's trying to take like an amateur and make them good, because the top of the, you know, like the top of the sport, they could train in like so many different ways and they're still going to get there. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. I think the biggest satisfaction is doing a lot of that stuff. You know, like you're trying to take somebody that's, you know, they're just there, then you can just turn it. Can you make them into a world champion? The answer is probably no. Sure. But like, you are born with something, I believe. You know, like to be the best in the world, that's an element that you're born with. Sure. You know, but there's a lot of satisfaction in just getting the results out of the people.
Yeah, I think a lot of the super high-level coaches that get really bigged up right now and get a lot of attention, like they've gotten athletes at a peak. You know what I mean? Like they were on their path to world champion or already world champion when they secured that athlete. So therefore they get a lot of credit for it. And I think there's a lot of coaches out there who don't get enough credit by taking an athlete who was maybe, you know, a top 20 athlete and turning him into a podium athlete. You know, that's a big jump to go from 20th place and even just a normal 70.3, like 10th to 20th place to a podium. Yeah. That's a huge jump, and people don't realize how big of a jump that is.
Yeah, but it's like, I remember working with you, and, you know, like it was Arizona that you did, where you beat Lionel.
Coeur d'Alene.
Coeur d'Alene.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm just trying, but that was that was a proud moment for me.
That was huge,
like taking like you were you know, like a young guy. I remember meeting you for the first time, and you're on like your journey. That was a proud moment for me. One of the biggest, proudest moments that I've had is it's like, you know, like Tim O'Donnell, taking him from, you know, obviously trying to win Kona, but we wanted to win, but getting that second place, like that jump from that was quite hard. You know, his best was third. Getting that second, man, we had to go like through so much. But the guy's old. You know, we were laughing about this. It was like 37, but we turned him, and it's so, when somebody's young, it's a bit easier to turn them, but I've done a lot with older athletes that I'm so proud about. You know, like you know, obviously I've been a lot with like Tio. It's a proud moment, that.
Yeah, that's very cool. Very, very cool. I'm curious a little bit to talk just a little bit more about who have been some of the, like you mentioned Tio, who have been some of the favorite athletes that you've worked with? That can be personal. That can be like because they're a super hard worker and they really absorb the training or anything like that.
I think like the athletes that have always, like, we've done quite a bit with like Taylor Neer, but I love her. She's kind of like so quirky. You know, like she just makes me smile. Like trying to learn like this process that she's got to go through at the minute. You know, like I love that. She always brings a smile to me. And people saying thanks, like she always says, "Oh, thanks for helping me." You know, like that goes like a lot.
That's huge. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like that's all I want at the end of the day. You know, like people that say thanks. I hate it that some people will come into the office and they don't. They never engage with you like after that point, really. So anyone that's done that, Victor Campanile, he's one of the most interesting characters that I've worked with. I was on, he's just mental. You know what I mean? Like the things that he thinks of are just on a different level. Then you have to go away and like research it, and you really have to know like what you're thinking about. I think that the athlete that I've engaged with like the most, and I've had you know, he's like my mate now. He's definitely Tim O'Donnell. You know, like we've, like me and Tio will be like mates forever. So
yeah, he's an easy guy to be mates forever with because I feel similarly about him. You know, he's just one of those guys.
Well, what's nice about Tim for me is the fact that he, you know, like I can come out here with my family and he takes me into his home and he makes them like really welcome, and that goes huge. Like a long way. Yeah. And I love it. Like, I remember you coming and stopping at my house, and you engage with my wife and my kids. That to me goes further than any results, really.
Yeah, I think that's something, you know, having had a quarter life crisis in the last year with, you know, having a big surgery and not getting the results over the last year, and realizing that like the results aren't the end all be all. It's really like those experiences and those relationships. And I think like that's a really good perspective to have in a world where like everything is so money driven, high performance driven. Like when you look back at a career and a life, you want to be like, all right, I had a good time and met people and engaged,
and I
know?
think that's the art of coaching though, isn't it? Like I always, you know, like it's like when you coach somebody, like, you know, I coach you, but I get it. You want to be, we haven't got, like, you're going to move on. Like all athletes are going to move on at like some point, unless they're like in the back end of the career. But you never need to fall out with people. Sure. You know what I mean? It's kind of like, and that's the art of coaching. You have to take what you can get from that point. And it is ruthless, you know, like, and then you go, right, okay, I've got to this point with that, and then I have to evolve. And I think that you know, like when things go right or wrong, then you have to look back sometimes. Actually, that was really good. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
you don't know how good it is until, you know, you maybe reflect a little bit, you know?
Yeah, but that's the art of like, you should never really you know, like it's like when people move on from like coaching, they should always leave on good terms, realistically.
And I've been fortunate in that I haven't had that many coaches, but I've had enough to have it go both ways. And the best coaches I've had have been the ones who are like, I want what's best for you.
Yeah.
Doors always open if you ever need anything. I wish you all the best.
Yeah.
And some people don't have that response, but I really appreciate it when coaches understand where the athlete's coming from.
I think that's always the best way. Like anyone that's starting up like coaching, like if you think of, like you listen to this, you think, oh, I'd like to be a coach. Well, don't worry about like the money or worry about like doing a good job.
100%.
Like that's the art of a lot of this, and it winds me up. Like, I'm going to be busy till I die because like there's so many people in the UK, like the triathlon coaches now, the bike fitters. They think that they do swim analysis now. They can do bike. Keep doing it but you're not making a good job. Like if you don't know what you're doing, don't focus on like those factors. And that's why we're booking. We're at the stage not long ago. We're like 4 months in advance. That I'm just trying to fix like all these problems that people are messing up.
Yeah. How much of your current life is bike fitting versus coaching and consulting?
My coaching element now is I coach like 8 people, and these people have been with me from when I started. Because I don't think it's not fair where the situation that I'm in at the minute that I'm so busy with bike fit. That's my life now, and the people that I'm working with, they're respectful of like my time. If they need a session changing, then they'll message me and I'll tell them what to do. But I haven't got time to be on like the call and do all of that. And that's the biggest part. It's too selfish. I've got a team of like 7 coaches that I've trained, and then they've taken on like that role realistically. But my job is it's going to be bike fitting to the. Yeah, and building bikes, like that's the bit that I love,
Yeah, I love that. That's really cool that you've been able to, build this and now focus on what you want to focus on.
It's amazing like how it changed. It was COVID that changed a lot for me. Like I trained somebody to do like bike fitting, and then it kind of we went our separate ways, and I was like, I want to get back to doing this. This is what I love being hands-on. Because like coaching can be a lonely place like a lot of the time because it's fine, like you're working with a pro, they want to engage, they probably need a bit more contact, but a lot of people, age groupers, they're so busy with the time that they don't want that phone call. They just want to tick the green box and away they go on to the next one.
Yeah, for sure. All right, well, this has been like incredibly insightful. I appreciate your transparency and all these questions. Before we wrap up, I've got some rapid fire questions for you.
I've seen these. I don't know if I'll be able to answer them.
All right, here we go. We'll get into it. What is the most difficult bike to fit?
Oh, Plasma 5.
Really?
Yeah.
I almost bought that bike.
Oh, it's evil. Like if it's not been built correctly, that bike is a nightmare.
Okay, forewarning for anyone looking at a Scott Plasma 5. Which training session have you been the most destroyed on? And I'm recalling a couple Kansas moments here when we did a training camp together.
Yeah, anything where you've got Matt Hansen is never going to be pleasant. Heat always kills me. I think the hardest session that for me was doing intervals to failure, where you ride at 110% of your threshold and you keep repeating 4-minute intervals with 4 minutes recovery until you can't do no more. But if you get it wrong, then you shouldn't be able to get above like 8 realistically. But that's probably the hardest thing. I used to use those sessions for like the key ones building into like the nationals.
What's the max number that you got through?
I think I got to 8.
That's pretty impressive.
But it was pretty tough.
All right. Who will be the first triathlete to go sub-7 in a normal regulated triathlon?
Oh, God, that's a good question. I think at the minute it's going to be Christian.
Yeah.
Like, if he can align, like, all the stars, like, he is a phenomenal athlete. He just needs everything to align. Like, I can see, like, I've worked with Christian. He's back in the game now, isn't he? You could see that performance. I think he's going to be the dude.
Yeah, I agree. All right. Or maybe somebody who we don't even know about yet.
Like, 2 years' time, there'll be somebody else new.
Yeah, one of these 19, 20-year-olds coming up. And
people are getting hungry. That's what I love. And you want that.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Who is the most talented athlete who you've ever coached or advised?
Most talented, probably Tim Don.
Tim Don? Wow. Over Taylor Knibb.
Yeah, I'd say that Tim Don was probably the most talented. Taylor Knibb's, I don't really coach.
Coach or advised,
definitely, Taylor. Yeah, she's very switched on, and the talent that she's got is phenomenal.
Yeah.
And she's still so young, like she's, I spoke to her, she's probably down about like the weekend, but I'm like, that's only the second Ironman that you've done. And like Dan was really smart with his approach. He's not broken her going into that.
Sure.
That's the smart coaching, like don't break the athlete, just get them through it.
Absolutely. All right. Who was the hardest working pro you've ever worked with?
Oh, Matt Hansen, by a shadow of a doubt. That dude can just freaking, like, he just wants to please.
Yeah, 100%. I've trained with Matt enough to know that. All right, and if you had to race 70.3 Boulder in a few weeks, how many pro men would you outbike today?
I think majority of them. There might be a few that beat
Oh,
me.
majority, man. Shots fired.
But maybe if I'd, give me a bit of attitude training, I reckon I can still push, so for like 56 miles, I used to be able to do, I'd probably be able to do like 355 to 360. We're not counting the running this, are we? Have we got?
I guess not. Yeah.
Yeah.
You got to make it round. You can't you can't pull off the course.
I think I could. I think I could still hold my own really. This depending, I suppose it's who turns up.
Yeah, I love that. All right, Matt. Well, this is awesome. I appreciate you coming to the studio. It's great catching up.
Oh, thank you so much, Justin. It's been
See you in the next episode. Peace.
Thank you very much.